And you use the term depression, I think, or feeling very down or bad. I know that you have a unique way of representing what happened to you, of explaining and expressing that, which I think is very interesting to our audience, to our listeners. Could you tell me a little bit about number 2 on your list of most important points that you want to share about depression?
Well, a couple of things. I learned that obviously depression is not a character flaw.
Thank you.
I learned that depression is a result of trauma, what I experienced, or loss in life, or biochemicals in the brain. I learned that depression can be treated with talk therapy and medicine. But for a long time, I kind of felt stigmatized. I was embarrassed that I was depressed and struggled with and had to see a psychiatrist or psychotherapist. So it was a very difficult time. I learned later in life, obviously, that it takes strength to go for help. Mm-hmm. And a couple very unique things happened to me during sort of over the years. I spent about 10 years in my 20s and 30s in psychotherapy, and in my late 40s and 50s in psychoanalysis. And I'll never forget one day, my analyst said to me, he goes, Dennis, you know, it's okay to need me. And it just hit me, because here I am, the president of a major medical center, very successful guy in all the terms that we define success. But I was embarrassed that I needed to see him. Mm-hmm. And he said to me, Dennis, it's okay to need me. And I was like, it's okay? He goes, yeah, because you never had any parenting. You know, your mom was clinically depressed because she was abused. Your father was, you know, not involved at all. And I realized it's okay that I needed somebody. Mm-hmm. And I began self-accepting that.
There seems to be a big belief, a strong belief in our country that we have to do things by ourselves. We have to forage through. We have to tough it out. But it sounds like you learned early on somehow, and I'm so interested to hear how you think you knew to reach out.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if I knew. It's instinctively, I sort of got to that point. I mean, I think when I was, you know, I kind of never was able to open up to anybody before. But at that point, I think I got so low and I was so down that, and he presented himself to me when I was in the hospital as such a wonderful man that I took a chance, and it changed my life. I mean, I dedicated the book to Father Gantley, who subsequently has passed away. But when I first met him, he was 45 and I was 21. But I just needed someone, and he showed up at the right time, sort of like a godsend. It was amazing.
Yeah. As we talk about your life, and as I have read your book, I realized that somehow for you, the right people came to your life at the right time. Almost like you sent out a secret signal, or there were God's right there at your shoulder.
I have a funny story. So I remember, here I was, you know, went from being graduate in high school, not getting into any college, rejected by every college. Eventually, 10 years later, graduating Rutgers Phi Beta Kappa National Honor Society, going to Columbia University Graduate School and have a lot of success, so my career was moving forward. And yet I knew the one thing that was really missing was I wasn't really able to have a sustainable relationship with anybody. I had a big wall up. And so I made a decision to go into psychotherapy and help with that. And so now that I was ready to have a relationship, I remember asking the VP of nursing, where I worked at a medical center before I met my wife, I said, Betty, when am I going to meet your nursing managers? Because I did the budgets for them in the finance department. She says, well, next Tuesday, we're having a Christmas party for nursing managers. She goes, bring your father, I'll grab that gift. So I said, fine. So try to be so pretentious. I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Modern Art in New York, where I was living, and I bought a book. I had nothing to do with art, knew nothing anything about art. And I bought this book. And so when I wrapped it up and they were opening gifts up, and they said, oh, Dennis, you're a French impressionist. I said, yeah, I'm a big fan of Monet. Well, I didn't realize it was Monet. So I was like saying, yeah, I've been a fan of Monet my whole life, and they realized this guy has no idea. It's Monet. I didn't have no idea it was Monet here. But that party, believe it or not, my future wife walked in, and I met her, and we took a little tour of the hospital. I asked her out, and in 3 months I got engaged, and 3 months later I got married, and in 2 months from today it'll be my 41st wedding anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you, it's amazing.
That's quite a milestone.
That was a godsend, yeah, but just like I needed Father Gantley, he came, I needed Gladys, she came.
So these people who were there for you, who just came at the right time, what would you say to them now?
Well, I tell my wife.
Well, what do you say to your wife every day
Well, I tell,
for 40 years?
I tell her, first of all, thank you very much for being my wife. But I told, Father Gantley, I'm forever grateful to him. And, I talked to him, for many years until, he passed away and everything. But, every day I'm appreciative of what I have. And I make sure I tell everybody that I know, that I work with, my colleagues and stuff, how appreciative I am, and tell my kids how much I love my kids and my grandson and things like that. But I never a day goes by that I never take for granted being alive and being happy and in well-being, and having the level of success that I have here. But I'm grateful for everybody who's been there for me. I've had a lot of mentors.
It sounds like it, and I'm sure they were very proud of you and very happy for you as you made progress.
Yeah, and what's interesting though, when I wrote the book about 5 years ago, it just got republished and came out with an updated chapter. But when I wrote the book, this was a secret I kept. I never told anybody that I was abused or suffered depression or had a hospitalization. None of that. And so people that knew me for 35 years professionally was like, no way.
Didn't know.
They didn't know. They're like, no way. I'm going, way, yeah. And so that, and what that did was allow people to kind of see me in a different light. That I wasn't this guy that would have had some silver spoon in my mouth, that Phi Beta from Rutgers and Columbia University Ivy League School and fancy titles and all this stuff here. And people started opening up to me about their parents and their dad and their struggles and other stuff. It became really a great conversation to have with people, because people, became very genuine.
They learned about the real you.
Yeah, and I learned a lot about the real me.
That's wonderful.
And what I eventually learned, and this is for everybody, was I really didn't like myself. Well, that's the impression I got from everybody. I was a loser. The teachers were punishing me, maybe putting my desk in a hallway closet, and my parents were dismissing me. My father was calling me a loser. I mean, you didn't feel it when you get out of school here. But the more I understood myself and why I did things, and I began to accept myself here, I really began to like myself, and that allows you to like other people. The old biblical term, love thy neighbor as thyself? But you can't love your neighbor and accept your neighbor until you can really accept and love yourself. And that was a hard thing for me to do, because I didn't love myself. And then I began to realize self-love and selfishness are not the same. They're not identical. They're very different.
Oh, it sounds like we need to have another talk about all of these concepts that you're bringing up, which are, of course, in my field, in mental health field, they're psychodynamic terms and concepts. But for you, they're a living truth.
Yeah.
You lived them, you understand them.